The apartment fell silent, broken by Emily's scream, sharp and raw, echoing through the night. She clutched Lily tightly, her trembling arms forming a fragile shield. Mark's face twisted with fury, his voice a low growl as he said, "You'll regret this." He stormed out, the door slamming so hard, the frame shook. Emily pressed her back against the wall, gasping for air as Lily whispered, "Mommy, don't cry." The faint sound of sirens drifted in from outside, heightening the chaos swirling in her mind. Her heart pounded with fear and determination, knowing everything had shifted in an instant. Betrayal lingered like smoke, suffocating and relentless, but Emily tightened her grip on Lily, whispering, "I won't let him take you." In that moment she stood at the breaking point, uncertain of tomorrow yet unwilling to surrender. Emily sat on the floor long after Mark had gone, staring at the chipped paint on the wall, her breathing shallow. Lily whispered questions she couldn't answer, her small voice breaking the silence. Emily kissed her hair, murmuring, "We'll be okay," though her chest ached with doubt. The air smelled faintly of rain drifting through the half-closed door, carrying the echo of sirens. Emily thought of every sacrifice, every night she had worked late to give Lily a better life, and how quickly it all now felt fragile. Fear pressed down, but within it burned a spark, quiet but alive. Emily told herself she couldn't crumble now, not when Lily's future depended on her. In that dim apartment, she clung to a fragile thread of resolve, knowing her fight had only begun. The silence stretched as Emily tucked Lily into bed, smoothing the blanket over her trembling frame. Lily asked, "Is Daddy coming back?" Emily's throat tightened, but she whispered, "Not tonight." She lingered, brushing Lily's hair until her eyelids grew heavy, every touch a desperate promise. Alone in the dim room, Emily's eyes stung, her chest burning with guilt. She wanted to collapse, but instead she whispered again, "I'll keep you safe." The shadows pressed close, but watching Lily drift into fragile sleep gave Emily strength. She sat there until the room was still, listening to the steady rhythm of her daughter's breathing, a fragile anchor holding her in place. When the apartment was finally quiet, Emily walked into the kitchen, the clock ticking louder than her own breath. She leaned against the counter, staring at the empty mug Mark had left behind. It felt like a scar etched into her space. Her hand shook as she picked it up, then slammed it into the sink, the sound shattering the silence. She whispered to herself, "No more." Tears welled again, but she forced them back, gripping the counter until her knuckles whitened. The storm outside tapped at the window like a reminder of everything broken. She felt small, powerless, but deep within, a determination began to form, steady and sharp, fueled by the thought of Lily sleeping peacefully in the other room. Emily sat at the kitchen table, hands clasped, staring at a pile of unpaid bills. Each envelope felt heavier than the last. She thought of the long shifts she had worked, the sacrifices made, and the endless nights she had carried everything alone. Her chest tightened with panic, but Lily's small laugh from the bedroom echoed faintly, grounding her. Emily whispered, "I have to be stronger." Her reflection in the dark window looked older than she remembered, lines etched by years of worry. She rubbed her temples, fighting fatigue, knowing tomorrow would bring another battle. In that moment, she made a vow, not only to fight Mark, but to never let despair consume her again. Morning light seeped into the apartment, but it carried no warmth. Emily sat at the kitchen table, staring at a letter Mark's lawyer had delivered, her hands trembling as she read the demand for shared custody. Her stomach knotted as the words blurred. Lily padded into the kitchen, clutching her stuffed rabbit, whispering, "Are you okay, Mommy?" Emily forced a smile, masking the storm within. She kissed Lily's forehead and said, "I'm fine, baby." But her voice cracked, betraying the truth. Every fear pressed down heavier than the bills stacked beside her. Emily knew Mark wouldn't stop until he had control again. She pushed the papers aside, whispering a vow under her breath. He won't win. At work, Emily stood behind the counter of the cafe, her apron stained from the morning rush. Her boss, Mr. Harris, frowned as he waved a schedule at her. "You can't keep leaving early, Emily," he snapped, voice sharp. Emily clenched her jaw, whispering, "I don't have a choice." The weight of his stare burned into her as customers bustled past. She wanted to scream, to explain that every hour she worked kept her daughter fed, but every hour she lost fighting Mark put custody at risk. Mr. Harris sighed, muttering, "Get it together, or I'll find someone who can." Emily's heart sank, trapped between survival and sacrifice. That evening, Sarah knocked softly at the apartment door, her warm smile a thin mask over concern. Emily opened the door, her exhaustion plain. Sarah stepped inside, placing a bag of groceries on the counter. "You can't keep doing this alone," she said gently. Emily shook her head, forcing a laugh. "I've been doing it alone for years." Sarah reached for her hand, squeezing firmly. "Then let me help now." Emily's eyes filled, but she pulled away, pride tangled with fear. The silence between them grew heavy, but Sarah's gaze stayed steady, her loyalty unshaken. Emily longed to lean on her, but trust felt fragile, breakable as glass. Later that night, Emily sat on Lily's bed, brushing her hair as the little girl whispered, "Daddy said he'll take me to the park." Emily's chest tightened, her hands pausing mid-stroke. Lily turned, eyes wide with innocent hope. Emily forced her lips into a smile and said, "Well, see, sweetheart, I." But her heart screamed at the thought of losing even a single moment. Lily yawned, resting her head on the pillow, her trust unshaken. Emily kissed her forehead, whispering a silent prayer into the quiet room. The battle ahead loomed darker, but watching Lily drift into sleep gave her one reason she could never surrender. When the apartment was finally still, Emily sat by the window, rain streaking the glass, city lights blurred beyond. She held her phone, staring at unanswered texts from Mark, his words sharp and cold. "I win this." Her hands shook, rage and fear colliding. She whispered to herself, "He doesn't know me anymore." In the silence, her reflection looked back, weary but resolute. Every sacrifice, every scar had led her here. She thought of Lily asleep, her tiny breaths steady. Emily pressed her forehead against the cool glass, whispering again, "I'll fight for us." The night outside seemed endless, but her vow glowed brighter within. Emily arrived home late, grocery bag in hand, only to find Sarah sitting rigid at the kitchen table. Papers lay scattered across the surface, some bearing Mark's signature. Emily's chest tightened as Sarah whispered, "I should have told you earlier." Rage flared, her voice sharp. "You've been talking to him?" Sarah's eyes brimmed with tears. "He cornered me, Emily. I thought I could protect you." Emily shook her head, betrayal cutting deeper than any wound Mark had left. Lily peeked from the hallway, sensing the tension but saying nothing. Emily's voice cracked as she whispered, "You were the only one I trusted." Silence filled the room, heavier than the storm outside. The argument spiraled, voices clashing against the hum of the storm. Sarah pleaded, "I didn't betray you. I was scared." Emily's hands shook as she slammed the papers down, her voice breaking. "Scared doesn't excuse lying to me." Sarah reached forward, but Emily pulled back sharply, her body trembling. The walls seemed to close in as Lily's small footsteps retreated down the hallway, escaping the heat of the fight. Emily's heart twisted at the sound, but anger kept her rooted. Sarah's tears spilled as she whispered, "You're my best friend." Emily whispered back, raw and bitter, "Not anymore." The words carved a finality that neither could erase. The next morning, Emily sat across from Ms. Turner at the courthouse office. The social worker's eyes were cold but observant, scanning her file with detached precision. "These inconsistencies trouble me, Miss Turner," said flatly. Emily leaned forward, desperation sharpening her voice. "My daughter is my life. Don't let his lies define me." Ms. Turner scribbled notes, her expression unreadable. The weight of judgment pressed against Emily, heavier than any courtroom walls. Every word she spoke felt like it slid past an invisible barrier. She clasped her hands tightly, hiding the tremor in her fingers. When Miss Turner finally looked up, Emily held her gaze, silently begging to be seen. Outside the courthouse, Emily leaned against the cold stone wall, her body sagging with exhaustion. Sarah called her name softly, standing a few feet away, drenched from the rain. Emily's eyes narrowed, her voice sharp. "Why are you here?" Sarah hesitated before saying, "Because I still care." Emily shook her head, pain flashing across her face. "You chose him." Sarah stepped closer, raindrops streaking her cheeks, mingling with tears. "I chose wrong, but I'll fight beside you now, if you'll let me." Emily turned away, staring at the wet pavement. Trust once broken was not easily repaired, yet her heart ached with the memory of their years together. That night, Emily tucked Lily into bed, but the child's wide eyes lingered. "Mommy, why are you and Aunt Sarah fighting?" Emily froze, then brushed Lily's hair back, whispering, "Sometimes grown-ups forget what matters." Lily hugged her rabbit tighter. "I just want us all to be happy." Emily's throat tightened as she kissed her forehead. "I know, baby. I'll do everything I can." After Lily drifted off, Emily sat by the window, staring at the storm subsiding outside. She whispered into the silence, "I'm losing ground, but I can't let her see it." The night was quieter now, but Emily's mind churned, fear and resolve colliding in fragile balance. Emily's hands froze on the doorknob when she saw a figure standing in the hallway. It was David, her estranged brother, older now, carrying years of absence in his eyes. "I heard about Mark," he said, his voice rough. Emily's chest tightened, words caught in her throat. "You don't get to show up after all this time." David lowered his gaze, guilt shadowing his face. "I should have been here, but I want to help now." The air between them buzzed with tension, memories of abandonment flooding her. Lily peeked from behind Emily's legs, eyes curious. Emily's body stiffened protectively, torn between rage and longing. The past had returned, demanding to be faced. Inside the living room, Emily paced while David sat nervously on the couch, his hands clasped. "Why now?" she demanded, her voice sharp. David sighed heavily, "Because I've been watching from a distance, and I couldn't stay away anymore." Emily's heart pounded, fury twisting with fragile hope. "You abandoned me when I needed you most," she spat. David's eyes glistened, his voice breaking. "I know. I'll never undo that, but let me stand by you now." The silence between them grew heavy, the hum of the rain outside filling the void. Emily's chest ached, her resolve trembling. Trusting him meant reopening wounds she had buried deep. Later that night, Emily sat at the kitchen table with David across from her, old photographs spread out between them. Lily's laughter drifted faintly from her bedroom. David traced one photo with his finger, his voice quiet. "I left because I couldn't face the past." Emily's jaw clenched, staring at the worn edges. "You left me to face it alone." The weight of memories pressed against them, years of silence roaring louder than words. David whispered, "I want to make it right." Emily's chest ached, but her eyes softened slightly. The photos blurred as tears welled, ghosts of their childhood tugging at her resolve. Sleep eluded Emily as she lay in bed, memories bleeding into her thoughts. Her mother's voice echoed in fragments of the past, words sharp and tender all at once. Margaret's image filled her mind, her soft smile mixed with stern warnings. Emily whispered into the darkness, "You'd know what to do." Tears streaked her face as the memory cut deep. She had spent years burying her pain, but now it clawed its way back. Her body curled tight, clinging to the blanket as if it could shield her from ghosts. The night pressed heavy, filled with echoes of the mother she had lost, and the guidance she craved. The next day, Emily stood at the window as David spoke quietly behind her. "Mark's pushing harder than ever. He won't stop." Emily's reflection in the glass looked older, worn by the weight of battles she hadn't chosen. "Then neither will I," she whispered. David stepped closer, his voice steady. "Let me be part of this fight." Emily turned, her eyes sharp, but softer than before. The anger hadn't vanished, but a flicker of acceptance stirred within her. Lily's laughter floated from the other room, grounding them both. Emily exhaled slowly, her body straightening. The war ahead loomed darker, but she was no longer entirely alone. The lawyer's letter arrived with a thud, heavier than paper should be. Emily unfolded it, her breath shallow as she read Mark's accusations. He painted her as unstable, unfit to raise Lily. David stood nearby, fists clenched, anger simmering. "He's twisting everything," he muttered. Emily's voice shook. "He knows exactly where to cut deepest." Her mind replayed every sacrifice, every sleepless night, now turned against her. Lily's laugh echoed faintly from her bedroom, a cruel contrast to the venom on the page. Emily pressed the letter to the table, whispering, "I won't let him take her." The fight was no longer just about survival. It was war. At the cafe, Emily wiped tables with robotic motions, exhaustion dragging her every step. Daniel, a kind customer who had become a familiar face, lingered by the counter. "Road day?" he asked softly, his eyes gentle. Emily forced a smile, shoulders sagging. "They're all rough." He slid a small tip jar closer, whispering, "You're stronger than you think." The kindness cracked something inside her, reminding her of the humanity she often forgot. For a fleeting moment, she allowed herself to meet his gaze, warmth flickering beneath her walls. Yet guilt gnawed at her, the weight of distraction pressing hard. Love was a luxury she couldn't afford. That evening, Lily sat at the table drawing, crayons scattered around her. Emily watched as her daughter carefully sketched a picture of 3 figures, holding hands under a bright sun. Lily looked up, smiling softly. "It's us, Mommy. We're still together." Emily's heart ached at the innocence, her eyes burning with tears she refused to shed. She kissed Lily's forehead, whispering, "Yes, always." The drawing felt like both a promise and a plea. Emily tucked the paper into her bag, knowing it would carry her through the courtroom storm. For all the lies Mark spread, this truth was untouchable: Lily's love. Sarah appeared at the apartment door, her face weary but determined. Emily hesitated before opening wider. "Why are you here?" she asked sharply. Sarah held out a folder. "Because I can help." Inside were copies of texts Mark had sent her, evidence of manipulation. Emily's breath caught as she scanned them, her chest tightening with anger and relief. Sarah's eyes pleaded, "I made mistakes, but I want to fix them." Emily's gaze hardened, yet gratitude flickered beneath. "If this helps Lily, I'll take it," she whispered. The fragile truce trembled in the air, both women knowing trust couldn't be rebuilt overnight. Night fell heavy as Emily stood by Lily's bedside, watching her chest rise and fall in sleep. David lingered at the doorway, his voice low. "He's not going to stop." Emily stroked Lily's hair, whispering, "Then neither will I." Her body trembled, but resolve burned steadier than fear. For the first time, she wasn't entirely alone. The storm outside rattled the windows, but the room felt warmer, filled with quiet strength. Emily kissed Lily's forehead, vowing silently that no lie, no betrayal, no courtroom battle would steal her child. Tomorrow would bring more pain, but tonight she chose determination over despair. The courthouse loomed with cold authority as Emily walked up the steps, David at her side. Her hands trembled, clutching the folder of evidence Sarah had given her. Inside, the air was sterile, the fluorescent lights harsh. Mark waited across the hall, his smirk sharp, flanked by his lawyer. Emily's heart raced, her stomach twisting, but she held her head high. "For Lily," she whispered under her breath. The echo of footsteps carried like drums of war. Every fear pressed closer, but her daughter's face steadied her resolve. She could no longer run from the storm. Today, she would face it head-on. Inside the courtroom, Emily sat at the plaintiff's table, her lawyer whispering strategy. Across the aisle, Mark leaned back smugly, whispering to his attorney. The judge entered, gavel striking, silencing the room. Emily's pulse thundered as she glanced at Lily, seated quietly beside a social worker, her small hands folded nervously. Emily swallowed hard, forcing her voice steady when called to testify. Every eye on her felt like a blade, cutting deep. She spoke of long nights, sacrifices, and love too fierce to be broken. The truth felt fragile in her throat, but her voice refused to falter. Mark took the stand, his lies polished, his tone dripping with practiced charm. He spoke of Emily's instability, of nights she failed Lily, twisting truth into poison. Emily's jaw clenched, her nails digging into her palms. Her lawyer rose, presenting Sarah's folder of texts. The courtroom stirred as Mark's words were exposed against his own threats, his mask cracking under pressure. His voice faltered, anger flashing in his eyes. Emily leaned forward, whispering fiercely to herself, "This ends now." The judge's gaze sharpened, the balance shifting. For the first time, Emily felt the ground steady beneath her feet. Emily's turn came, her hands trembling as she stepped onto the stand. She met Lily's eyes, steadying herself. Her voice quivered at first, but each word grew stronger as she spoke of sacrifice, nights spent working double shifts, mornings filled with hope. She admitted her fears, her mistakes, but her love shone brighter than shame. Mark's lawyer tried to cut her down, but she refused to break. Her truth was raw, imperfect, but undeniable. Tears shimmered in Lily's eyes as she watched her mother's courage unfold. The silence that followed Emily's testimony was heavy, but it was hers. The climax hit when Emily confronted Mark directly during cross-examination. Her voice rang steady, cutting through his fabrications. "You abandoned us," she said, eyes locked on his. Mark shifted, rage breaking through his composure. The courtroom buzzed, tension crackling in the air. Emily pressed on, her strength burning through every word. The judge raised his hand for silence, but the damage was done. Mark's lies lay shattered, his credibility unraveling. Emily sank back into her seat, chest heaving, tears brimming. She wasn't just fighting for custody anymore, she was reclaiming her voice. The war wasn't over, but the tide had turned. The courtroom was silent as the judge delivered his decision. Custody is awarded to Emily. Her breath caught, the words echoing like salvation and burden all at once. Mark's face twisted in fury, his lawyer whispering in vain. Emily's hands trembled as David squeezed her shoulder, grounding her. Lily's eyes lit up from across the room, innocence glowing brighter than the fluorescent lights above. Emily wanted to collapse, to weep, but she straightened her back instead, carrying the weight of victory with quiet dignity. This wasn't triumph without cost, but it was freedom. She had fought, and for once, she had won. Outside the courthouse, Emily stood in the sunlight, the crisp air feeling strange after the storm inside. Reporters murmured in the distance, their voices fading as David shielded her with his presence. Lily tugged at her sleeve, asking softly, "Can we go home now?" Emily bent down, hugging her tightly, whispering, "Yes, baby. We can finally go home." David's gaze lingered with quiet pride, his guilt easing under the warmth of the moment. The world still loomed uncertain, but in that instant, freedom tasted real. Emily exhaled, her first breath in years that wasn't chained to fear. That evening, Emily sat at the dining table with David across from her. Papers lay stacked neatly, the final documents sealing the decision. She brushed her fingers across them, whispering, "It's done." David leaned forward, his voice steady. "You don't have to carry this alone anymore." Emily's eyes glistened, her anger softened by the brother she once thought gone forever. "I'm not ready to forgive," she said quietly, "but I'm ready to start again." David nodded, accepting the fragile truce. The shadows of the past still lingered, but a fragile hope had begun to rise between them. Later, Emily tucked Lily into bed. The little girl's voice was soft. "Mommy, does this mean we're safe now?" Emily brushed back her hair and kissed her forehead, whispering, "Yes, sweetheart, we're safe." Lily smiled, clutching her rabbit as her eyes fluttered shut. Emily sat quietly, watching her daughter's steady breathing. For the first time in years, the fear had loosened its grip. She reached for the lamp, switching it off, leaving only the gentle glow of moonlight. It felt fragile, but it was peace. Emily closed her eyes, soaking in the quiet she had fought so hard to protect. The apartment was quiet that night, the storm replaced by peace. Emily stood in the kitchen, staring out the window at city lights, glowing faintly in the distance. She placed her hand gently on Lily's bedroom door, whispering, "We'll be okay." For the first time her smile wasn't forced, but real. She sat on the couch, shoulders sinking into the cushions, exhaustion heavy, but freeing. The scars of betrayal and loss still marked her, but strength now outweighed the wounds. Emily whispered to herself, "We're stronger now, and we'll never stop fighting." The night felt lighter, carrying hope into tomorrow.